The rain pounded mercilessly against the asphalt, transforming the movie theater parking lot into a maze of puddles reflecting the neon lights overhead. Michael Carter gripped his 7-year-old daughter Sophie's hand tightly as they navigated between parked cars. His worn electrician's jacket patches on both elbows provided little protection against the sudden downpour. 20 yards ahead, a woman in an expensive coat hurried a small boy toward a black luxury sedan, her heels clicking against wet pavement. The first gunshot cracked through the night air like thunder. Michael's world instantly collapsed into a singular focus. He pushed Sophie behind the nearest vehicle, her small body sliding against wet metal as she crouched down. "Don't move," his eyes commanded her before he turned toward the sound. The woman ahead had frozen, clutching her son against her designer dress. Two figures emerged from the shadows between cars, one pointing a weapon. Michael's body moved before his mind could process consequences. 15 years of rooftop work had taught him to act on instinct when danger threatened. He lunged forward, crossing the distance in seconds as another shot rang out. The boy's eyes widened in terror as Michael reached him, positioning himself as a human shield. The third bullet found flesh tearing through Michael's left shoulder. The impact sent him staggering, but he remained upright, one hand pressed against the boy's chest, pushing him back toward his mother. Blood spread across Michael's jacket, hot against the cold rain. The silver pocket watch in his vest fell forward on its chain, swinging like a pendulum as he steadied himself. "Con-Antoine Recalbe," he whispered, voice steady despite the fire in his shoulder. "I've got you." The assailants disappeared into the darkness as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind shocked silence, broken only by the relentless drumming of rain. Michael slumped against a car, his fingers closing around the pocket watch, a lifeline to reality, as the parking lot began to spin. The woman's face hovered above him, designer makeup streaked by rain or tears, her lips forming words he couldn't hear, as consciousness slipped away. Morning light filtered through thin curtains, casting rectangles across the worn hardwood floor of the Carter apartment. Sophie stood at the kitchen window, small fingers pulling back the fabric just enough to peer outside. "Daddy, there are big black cars everywhere," she whispered, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. Michael winced as he joined her at the window, left arm secured in a hospital sling. 6 black SUVs with tinted windows had formed a perimeter around their modest apartment building, blocking the narrow street. Men in suits stood at strategic points, speaking into earpieces. Neighbors gathered on sidewalks with phones raised, recording the unusual scene. FBI suggested Mrs. Rivera from 3B, her morning coffee forgotten in her hand as she gossiped with other residents. Mafia countered Mr. Wilson from across the hall, adjusting his bathrobe. "Look at those vehicles. Government plates. Maybe it's about the shooting someone else offered. Wasn't your neighbor the one who saved that rich kid Michael?" Let the curtain fall back into place, turning away from the window. He had no interest in speculating about mysterious vehicles. His world operated on precision and necessity, a carefully calibrated routine that left no room for black SUVs or media attention. The bandage on his shoulder pulled tight as he reached for the silver pocket watch on the counter. 6:45 a.m. 15 minutes until Sophie needed to leave for school. 30 minutes until his first repair job across town. Except he wouldn't be climbing any electrical poles today. The doctor had been clear 6 weeks minimum before returning to physical labor. 6 weeks without his primary income. The thought sent a sharper pain through his chest than the bullet had. Life hadn't always demanded such precise calculations. Before Elizabeth got sick, they'd been comfortable, not wealthy, but stable. The electricity in their apartment never flickered because Michael had rewired it himself. Sophie never went without new shoes for school or fresh fruit in her lunchbox. They'd been saving for a small house in the suburbs. Cancer changed everything in 8 brutal months. First came the medical bills, then the funeral expenses, then the crushing reality of being a single father with a mountain of debt. Michael sold their car. He downsized to this apartment in a neighborhood that made him double-check the locks each night. He learned to stretch dollars across necessities, to work double shifts to function on 4 hours of sleep. The silver pocket watch remained his one indulgence. It had belonged to his grandfather, a man whose legacy lived primarily through family stories. The watch face showed time slightly off, the hands never quite aligning properly. Michael had been quoted $300 to fix it, money better spent on Sophie's dance lessons or winter coat. Time stops for the important moments he would tell Sophie when she asked why he didn't get it repaired. Sophie appeared at his side, already dressed in her school uniform, hair neatly braided. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a perfectly folded orange paper crane, presenting it to him with solemn ceremony. For your pocket, Daddy. So nothing bad happens while you're helping people. The ritual had begun after Elizabeth's death when Sophie discovered origami through a library book. One crane each morning tucked into his work shirt pocket before he left. Today she held a second crane identical to the first. One for you, one for me. We match now. Michael accepted the paper bird, carefully slipping it into his vest pocket alongside the silver watch. The pain in his shoulder momentarily forgotten, replaced by something deeper. His daughter had witnessed too much loss in her 7 years. Now she'd seen her father bleeding in a parking lot. The thought of that fear in her eyes twisted inside him. 15 miles across the city in a penthouse apartment overlooking the financial district, Rebecca Winters stared at the ceiling, sleep elusive despite Egyptian cotton sheets and a mattress that had cost more than some cars. At 29, she'd built Horizon Technologies from a college dorm room concept into a billion-dollar enterprise. The youngest female CEO in the tech industry, her face had graced magazine covers, her name appeared on 30 under 30 lists. Success by every external measure. She turned to check the time, 47 a.m. In 13 minutes her alarm would sound. She could squeeze in another meditation session before Lucas woke up. The 6-year-old still slept soundly in his room down the hall, where nightlights kept shadows at bay. Since Mark's death 2 years ago, Lucas had developed a fear of darkness. The therapist said it was normal a child's attempt to control something when life had proven unpredictable. Rebecca slipped from bed, wrapping herself in a silk robe. Her bare feet made no sound against the hardwood floor as she passed her home office. The room remained exactly as she'd left it last night, laptop open to quarterly projections, 3 empty espresso cups, and the blue silk scarf folded neatly beside her keyboard. The scarf's twin resided in Lucas's room, wrapped around his shoulders each morning before school. When you wear this, you're safe. The same words her mother had whispered during childhood thunderstorms now passed to her son, a generational talisman against fear. Last night's board meeting replayed in her mind as she poured filtered water into the kettle. Harrison Rhodes' voice echoed with particular clarity. We need to consider the Jensen acquisition offer more seriously, Rebecca. The market doesn't reward sentimentality. His eyes had lingered on the framed photos of Mark on her office wall. The implication clear. A widow making emotional decisions rather than logical ones. Harrison represented old guard tech men who'd built empires in the 1990s and now sat on boards pronouncing judgment on the next generation. At 54, his salt and pepper hair and tailored suits projected authority. His Harvard MBA opened doors and his network stretched across industries. He'd been Mark's mentor before becoming Rebecca's adversary. The kettle whistled. Rebecca silenced it quickly, not wanting to wake Lucas before necessary. 6 years old meant first grade, which meant school drop-offs before 8 a.m. meetings, which meant carefully orchestrated mornings. Her phone buzzed with the day's first email security updates regarding last night's incident, the shooting. Her hands trembled slightly as she set down her tea. Less than 12 hours ago, a stranger had taken a bullet meant for her son. The security footage played in endless loops behind her eyelids, 2 men appearing from nowhere. The electrician pushing Lucas behind him, blood spreading across a worn jacket. Rebecca opened the security report, scanning for updates on the injured man. Michael Carter, 33, electrician contracted with Metropolitan Building Services. Stable condition, released from hospital at own insistence. Single father to daughter. Sophie Carter, age 7. A single father. The detail landed with unexpected weight. Rebecca closed her eyes, another memory surfacing from 3 days earlier. The upscale market near Lucas's private school specialized in organic produce and imported delicacies. Rebecca had been selecting fresh berries for a company event when raised voices drew her attention 2 aisles over. A security guard loomed over a man in work clothes, the same man from the parking lot she now realized. His hands bore traces of paint or caulk, his boots scuffed from labor. A little girl with braided hair clutched his hand, eyes downcast. I need to see your receipt again, sir. The guard's tone carried practiced authority. We've had incidents of theft recently. The man Michael had produced the receipt without protest, dignity intact despite the public humiliation. I understand you're doing your job, but next time maybe wait until I'm not with my daughter. The little girl had looked up, then confusion in her eyes. Why is that man being mean to you, Daddy? Michael had knelt down to her level voice, gentle. Some people make mistakes about other people sometimes. Sophie, it doesn't mean they're bad, just that they don't see clearly yet. Rebecca had stood frozen organic blueberries forgotten in her hand. She should have intervened, should have said something to the security guard, vouched for the man, made some gesture of solidarity. Instead, she'd remained silent, caught between social protocols and human decency. By the time she decided to act, they were gone. The memory burned with fresh shame in light of last night's events. The same man she'd failed to defend had saved Lucas without hesitation. The universe had a particular talent for highlighting one's moral failings. Rebecca's security phone buzzed with a text from her head of protection SUVs in position at Carter residence as requested. Await further instructions. The attack had happened fast, details still unclear in the chaos. Two men emerging from behind a van, weapons drawn, shouting demands that made no sense. Michael Carter's response had been pure instinct. Secure his own child first, then protect whoever else needed protecting. The bullet had torn through his shoulders, spinning him sideways against the car. But his voice had remained steady, reassuring Lucas while blood soaked his jacket. You're safe, kid. I've got you. Rebecca set down her tea untouched. In 3 hours, she would convene an emergency meeting with her PR team. They would advise distance caution, perhaps a tasteful gift basket, informal letter of gratitude. Standard corporate protocol for uncomfortable human situations. The man would become an anecdote in company lore, then fade from relevance. Unless she chose differently this time. At precisely 7:30 a.m., Michael helped Sophie into her raincoat, checking twice that she had her lunch and homework folder. The mysterious SUVs remained outside, but he'd received no visitors, no explanation for their presence. His shoulder throbbed despite the prescription painkillers he'd reluctantly taken. 6 weeks of recovery. The math didn't work, no matter how he calculated it. His emergency fund would cover rent for 1 month. After that, eviction loomed unless he found alternative income. Mrs. Rivera appeared at his door, offering to walk Sophie to school. I saw what happened on the news, she said, eyes lingering on his sling. You're a hero, Mr. Carter. The word made him uncomfortable. Heroes in movies save the day, then return to glamorous lives. Real people bled, worried about medical bills, and figured out how to explain violence to their children. Thank you for taking Sophie, he managed, forcing a smile for his daughter's benefit. I'll pick her up at 3. As the door closed behind them, Michael sank onto the worn sofa, exhaustion washing over him. The hospital discharge papers lay on the coffee table, alongside pain management instructions and a bill with too many zeros for comfort. His phone displayed 17 missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize, reporters most likely. Local news had already labeled him anonymous hero saves CEO's son. A knock at the door interrupted his calculations. Probably another neighbor with casseroles and curious questions. Michael considered ignoring it, but the knocking persisted. He pushed himself up, wincing as the movement pulled at his stitches. The woman on his doorstep stopped his breath. Designer jeans and a simple white blouse couldn't disguise wealth that radiated from perfect posture and confident eyes. Her son clutched her hand, partially hidden behind her legs, a blue scarf around his small shoulders. Behind them, the security perimeter had expanded, men in tactical gear, redirecting morning traffic and curious onlookers. Mrs. Winters. Michael acknowledged, voice betraying surprise and something that might be wariness. Rebecca's response carried across the suddenly silent street as neighbors froze to witness the encounter. She knelt down to Sophie's eye level, pulling an identical blue scarf from her purse. Your father saved my son's life, she said clearly. From this moment forward, your family is under my protection. She wrapped the blue scarf gently around Sophie's shoulders with ceremonial care. When you wear this, you're safe. That's a promise. Cameras flashed from the perimeter as reporters strained against security lines. Michael stood frozen, one hand instinctively finding the orange paper crane in his vest pocket. You didn't need to come here, he said quietly. Yes, I did, Rebecca replied, rising to face him directly. 3 days ago, I watched you get humiliated in a grocery store. I should have spoken up then. I was a coward. The admission sent whispers rippling through the gathering crowd. CEOs didn't typically confess moral failings publicly. When I saw your face in that parking lot right before the shooting started, I knew exactly who you were, the man who protected his daughter's feelings while being treated like a criminal. Rebecca reached into her other pocket and produced a manila envelope thick with documents. There's something you need to know about your grandfather. Michael's hand instinctively went to the silver pocket watch in his vest. My grandfather, 25 years ago, there was a fire at the children's shelter downtown. An electrical problem started the blaze just after midnight. 43 children were inside, including a 7-year-old girl whose mother worked double shifts to keep them both alive. Rebecca's voice broke slightly, but she continued. A maintenance worker was driving by when he saw the smoke. He ran into that burning building 6 times carrying children to safety. On his last trip inside, the ceiling collapsed on him. He saved 43 lives and died a hero. She handed Michael the envelope with trembling fingers. But the newspapers called him an unnamed maintenance worker. The city listed him as unidentified rescue personnel. He was forgotten within a week. Michael opened the envelope with unsteady hands. Inside were yellowed newspaper clippings, official reports, and a photograph that made his breath catch. His grandfather, younger than he remembered, standing beside a fire truck with soot on his face and a child in his arms. That 7-year-old girl was me. Rebecca whispered, your grandfather saved my life. And 25 years later, his grandson saved my son's. The crowd had gone completely silent, even the reporters momentarily forgetting to shout questions. I've carried his picture in my wallet for 25 years, Rebecca continued. I built my company partly to honor the man who gave me a future, but I never knew his name until my security team ran background checks after the shooting. She pulled out a worn photograph from her pocket, the same image from the envelope, but smaller, creased from decades of handling. Samuel Carter, your grandfather, the most famous unknown hero in this city's history. Michael stared at the photograph, then at his pocket watch. The hands that never aligned properly, the time that never matched reality. Suddenly it made sense. The watch had stopped at the moment his grandfather made his final rescue, the exact time he chose to save one more child instead of saving himself. The Carter Legacy Fund, Rebecca said, producing another set of documents. It's been waiting for 25 years to find Samuel Carter's family. 43 lives, he saved 43 families who never forgot his name. They've been contributing to a fund that bears his name, hoping someday to thank his family properly. The murmur intensified when Rebecca revealed the fund's total $2.3 million accumulated over decades by grateful families. But that's not why I'm here, she added quickly, seeing Michael's overwhelmed expression. I'm not here because of money or guilt or corporate responsibility. I'm here because 2 generations of Carters have taught me what real heroism looks like. She turned to address the crowd, her voice carrying clearly over cameras and traffic. The newspapers got it wrong 25 years ago, and they got it wrong again yesterday. These aren't unnamed heroes. This is Samuel Carter's legacy, living and breathing in his grandson. The crowd began to applaud slowly at first, then building to something that sounded like redemption. But the moment that truly resonated occurred when 6-year-old Lucas stepped forward and carefully pinned something to Michael's jacket, a small orange paper crane perfectly folded. Sophie taught me how to make this, he said solemnly. She said it keeps heroes safe. Sophie beamed with pride, touching the blue scarf around her shoulders. Now we both have protection. Rebecca looked at Michael, eyes bright with emotion. Your grandfather's sacrifice wasn't forgotten. It was just waiting for the right moment to come home. The silver pocket watch in Michael's hand ticked steadily, its misaligned hands finally making perfect sense. Time doesn't stop for important moments. It creates a legacy that spans generations. The transformation happened gradually, then all at once. Within hours of Rebecca's public revelation, the narrative completely shifted. The same news outlets that had called Michael a nameless risk-taker now ran features about the Carter legacy, 2 generations of heroes. Social media exploded with hashtags Carter Heroes and #Never Forgotten. But the most meaningful change happened in the quieter spaces. Rebecca invited Michael and Sophie to her company's headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that reached toward the clouds. The contrast with their small apartment was stark, but Rebecca had prepared carefully. I want to show you something, she said, leading them to a conference room where the walls were covered with photographs and newspaper clippings. The display told a story of 43 lives, children who grew up to become teachers, doctors, artists, parents. Wedding photos, graduation pictures, family portraits with the lady. because Samuel Carter chose courage over safety 25 years ago. Every person in these photos has contributed to the Carter Legacy Fund, Rebecca explained. Not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. Your grandfather didn't just save lives that night, he saved futures. Sophie studied the pictures with 7-year-old intensity, counting silently. Daddy, there are so many babies, she observed, pointing to the children and family portraits. 43 people he saved, plus their children, plus their children's children. Rebecca said softly. Heroes create families that might never have existed. Michael's throat tightened as he absorbed the scale of his grandfather's impact. All these years, he'd carried the watch as a personal connection to a man he barely remembered. He never imagined it represented something so profound. A security alert interrupted the moment. Rebecca's phone buzzed with urgent messages. She excused herself briefly, returning with lines of tension around her eyes. We need to talk privately, she said, gesturing toward her office. Sophie, would you like to see our innovation lab? Lucas can show you the robots. The children departed with an assistant, Sophie's excitement temporarily overshadowing her usual caution around strangers. When the door closed behind them, Rebecca's professional demeanor shifted. The men who attacked us in the parking lot have been apprehended, she began. Her voice lowered. During interrogation, they revealed their true target. It wasn't random, Michael. They weren't after me. They were specifically targeting Lucas. Michael's protective instincts flared immediately. Why would someone target a 6-year-old child? Rebecca moved to her computer, pulling up security footage. Harrison Rhodes heads my board of directors. He's been pushing for a merger. I've resisted, one that would effectively dismantle everything I've built. The footage showed an older man in an expensive suit, silver hair perfectly styled, entering a restaurant. According to our intelligence, he hired those men to kidnap Lucas as leverage in a hostile takeover attempt. The shooting was meant to be a distraction while they grabbed him and disappeared. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Michael had stepped into something far more dangerous than a random act of violence. His intervention hadn't just prevented an injury, it had thwarted an abduction. Now he and Sophie were entangled in corporate warfare beyond their understanding. You should take your son and leave town until this is resolved, he advised, thinking like a father rather than a victim. His own words triggered a realization. Sophie, if these people knew enough to target Lucas, they might also know about her. I've already enhanced security at her school, Rebecca assured him, reading his expression. 2 plainclothes officers are watching her classroom right now. But you're right, we need a more comprehensive solution. That's why I'm offering you a position. A position. Michael's confusion was evident. Security advisor for community safety. The Safe Haven program needs someone with your instincts, your practical skills, and your understanding of what protection really means. Someone who sees a child in danger and doesn't think about anything except keeping them safe. Michael's initial reaction was suspicion. I'm an electrician, not a security expert. I didn't save Lucas because of training. I did it because any decent person would. Rebecca's eyes softened. That's exactly why I'm offering you this job. Technical skills can be taught. Moral instinct can't. Her gaze shifted to the wall of photographs. 43 lives saved created hundreds more. Imagine what a program designed around that principle could accomplish. The offer hung between them, heavy with implication. Michael's practical mind calculated logistics, salary, responsibilities, the opportunity to escape crushing debt. But deeper concerns surfaced. Sophie's stability, the danger of association with powerful enemies, the complex dance between gratitude and pity, between opportunity and obligation. I need time to think about it, he finally said. This isn't just my decision. Sophie has already lost too much stability in her life. Rebecca nodded, understanding, evident in her expression. Take whatever time you need. But please consider one thing: your grandfather's watch stopped the moment he decided another child's life mattered more than his own safety. You made the same choice in that parking lot. Some legacies are meant to continue. As they prepared to leave, Rebecca handed Michael a business card with her personal number. The emergency board meeting starts in 20 minutes. Harrison will be there, not knowing what we've discovered. By tomorrow, this situation will look very different. Michael slipped the card into his pocket alongside the orange paper crane. The silver watch ticked steadily, keeping time for decisions yet unmade. The media circus intensified over the following days. Reporters camped outside Michael's apartment building, hoping for interviews or photographs. Online comments ranged from cynical to inspirational, probably staged for attention. Heroes don't need publicity. Maybe there are still good people in this world. Sophie faced her own challenges at school. During lunch period, a classmate approached her table with practiced cruelty. "My mom says your dad is just a cheap hero," the boy announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "She says he only helped because he wanted money." Sophie's face crumpled. She pulled the orange paper crane from her pocket and slowly tore it into small pieces, bright paper falling like confetti onto her untouched sandwich. When Michael picked her up that afternoon, her usual chatter was replaced by silence. She avoided his questions about her day, refusing to explain the red rims around her eyes. That evening, as rain pattered against their apartment windows, Sophie sat at the kitchen table with homework spread before her. Instead of math problems, she stared at the torn pieces of her orange crane devastation written across her small features. "Daddy, why are people saying mean things about you?" she finally asked. Michael sat beside her, placing his silver pocket watch on the table between them. "Sometimes when people don't understand something, they make up stories to explain it," he said carefully. "They can't imagine helping someone without wanting something back. But you didn't want anything, right? No, sweetheart. I just wanted that little boy to be safe." Sophie nodded solemnly, then began gathering the torn orange paper. "Can we fix my crane?" "We can make a new one," Michael promised. As they worked together, folding fresh orange paper into clean lines and careful creases, Michael noticed something strange. The silver watch hands had moved slightly, still not accurate, but different from before. He had never believed in signs or mystical connections, preferring the reliability of electrical circuits and physical laws. Yet something undeniable was happening, as if the universe were shifting around choices made in parking lots and burning buildings. Time doesn't stop for important moments, he realized. It slows down just enough for you to choose what matters. Outside their window, rain continued falling on the mysterious SUVs still stationed along their street. Neighbors peered through curtains, phones already dialing friends to report the unusual activity. "FBI," someone whispered. "Mafia," another voice suggested. "Maybe it's about the shooting." The vehicles had arranged themselves with military precision, two at each end of the block, two in the middle. Tinted windows revealed nothing. License plates showed government codes that meant nothing to civilian observers. Michael didn't notice the growing crowd of neighbors on the sidewalk, all staring at the mysterious convoy parked outside his building. He focused entirely on helping Sophie perfect the wing folds of her new orange crane. There, she said with satisfaction, placing the completed bird in his shirt pocket. "Now you're protected again." Meanwhile, across town, Rebecca faced her own pressures. Her PR team scheduled an emergency meeting in the steel and glass conference room overlooking the city. The message was clear and unanimous: distance herself from the Carter situation. "Don't appear publicly with him again," advised her head of communications, a sharp woman in an expensive suit. "It'll damage the company's carefully crafted image. The market doesn't like messiness." Her board member, notably not Harrison Rhodes, who had been suspiciously unavailable since their confrontation, leaned forward with practiced concern. "We're grateful for what he did, of course, but gratitude and business strategy are separate considerations." Rebecca stared out the window at the city below, thinking about the man who bled to protect her son while she stood frozen. "What if we helped him quietly?" "Absolutely not," the PR director countered immediately. "Any financial assistance will look like an admission that we somehow owe him something. It creates liability issues." That evening, a particularly aggressive reporter managed to bypass building security and cornered Michael as he returned from picking up Sophie from school. The man shoved a microphone toward them, camera rolling. "Mr. Carter, have you contacted CEO Winters about compensation for your heroic act?" The question was loaded with implication. Michael positioned himself between the reporter and Sophie, his wounded shoulder protesting the movement. No comment. "Come on, surely you expect something in return. Medical bills, lost wages." "A thank you would be nice," Michael conceded, his voice level, despite rising anger. "Wouldn't it? I said no comment. What about you, sweetheart?" The reporter tried to aim the microphone at Sophie. "How does it feel to have a hero daddy?" That's when Michael's patience broke, not with anger, but with the quiet firmness of a father protecting what matters most. "Interview's over. Move away from my daughter." He guided Sophie inside, locked the door, and slid the security chain into place. Through the window, he could see the reporter already broadcasting, spinning the encounter into whatever narrative would generate the most clicks and views. At bedtime, Sophie asked for 2 stories instead of her usual one. Michael obliged, recognizing the request for what it was, her way of processing fear. As he tucked the blanket around her small shoulders, she clutched a fresh orange crane. "Daddy, are those bad men going to come back?" The question stabbed through him. No matter how carefully he'd shielded her, violence had invaded her world. The truth was, he didn't know if Harrison Rhodes would send more men. Didn't know if the publicity had made them targets. Didn't know how to protect her from forces beyond his control. "The people in the black cars are keeping us safe," he answered, instead, offering what comfort he could. "Ms. Winters promised to protect us, remember? Because of Grandpa Samuel, that's right. Because heroes take care of each other." The answer seemed to satisfy her. Sophie's eyes drifted closed, the orange crane still clutched in her small fist. Michael remained beside her bed long after her breathing deepened into sleep, watching shadows play across her face. 7 years old and already acquainted with loss, with danger, with the cruel complexity of a world that should have remained simple for many more years. His phone vibrated with a text message. Unknown number, but the content made the sender clear. "Harrison Rhodes has been removed from the board of directors. Preliminary investigation confirms his involvement in the parking lot incident. You and Sophie remain under protection until all associates are identified." Michael's shoulder throbbed as he settled onto the living room sofa, unable to sleep despite exhaustion. The silver pocket watch rested on the coffee table, hands moving steadily forward. In less than a week, his carefully constructed life had unraveled. The routine that kept chaos at bay shattered. The anonymity that provided safety gone. The financial precarity that kept him awake at night potentially resolved, but at what cost? A soft knock at the front door startled him from his thoughts. Not the aggressive pounding of reporters, but something quieter, more hesitant. Michael checked the peephole, surprised to find Rebecca Winters standing alone in the hallway without security detail or camera crew. He opened the door cautiously. "It's nearly midnight," he observed. "I know," she acknowledged, fatigue evident beneath her composed exterior. "May I come in? There's something important we need to discuss." Michael stepped aside, acutely aware of the stark contrast between his modest apartment and the woman who probably owned the building. Rebecca entered without comment or judgment, declining his offer of coffee with a small gesture. Harrison confessed, she began without preamble. "My security team extracted the full story. The men in the parking lot were hired to create a distraction while Lucas was taken. They were supposed to fire warning shots, not actually hit anyone. Your intervention ruined the timing." Michael processed this information, connecting dots between corporate power plays and bullets in parking lots. "So I wasn't the target, no. Neither was I directly." Rebecca's composure wavered slightly. "They were after my son, to use him as leverage against me. The company is on the verge of a breakthrough that would make the Jensen acquisition extremely profitable for certain board members. I've blocked the merger for ethical reasons." Harrison found another way to force my hand. The clinical discussion of child abduction as a business tactic ignited something primal in Michael's chest. "He has access to the best attorneys in the country. You really think he'll face consequences?" Rebecca's eyes hardened. "Harrison Rhodes will never work in this industry again. I've made certain of it. But that's not why I'm here at midnight." She reached into her bag and withdrew a folder bearing the Horizon Technologies logo. "I spoke with my legal team about the Safe Haven program. We're prepared to offer you a comprehensive package, full-time position as Community Safety Advisor Company, housing in a secured building, college fund for Sophie, and complete medical coverage." Michael's immediate reaction was suspicion. "Why me? I'm not qualified for whatever position you've invented." "Because you did what no one else did," Rebecca replied simply. "Not just in the parking lot, in the grocery store too. You protected your daughter's dignity while being humiliated. You showed her how to maintain self-respect in an unjust situation. Then you risked your life for a child you didn't know." "That's not special," Michael insisted. "That's just being human." Rebecca's smile held sadness. "If that were true, the world would look very different." She slid the folder across the coffee table. "The program isn't charity, Michael. It's investment in the right kind of protection the kind that sees people as worth saving simply because they exist. Michael didn't reach for the folder. Instead, he asked the question that had been troubling him since the revelation about his grandfather. Why didn't you find us sooner if you've been carrying his picture for 25 years? Why wait until now? The question hung between them, uncomfortable in its directness. Rebecca's professional mask slipped, revealing something raw beneath. I tried. After the fire, I wanted to thank the family of the man who saved me, but the city records listed him as unidentified. By the time I had resources to conduct a proper search, the trail had gone cold. Carter is a common name. Samuel died before digital records became standard. She paused, composing herself. When your face appeared on security footage after the shooting, I didn't make the connection immediately. It wasn't until my team ran background checks that your grandfather's name appeared. Samuel Carter, maintenance worker. The dates matched. The circumstances aligned. 25 years searching, and you found me by protecting my son in a parking lot. Outside, rain began falling again, a gentle percussion against the windows. Sophie's steady breathing carried from the bedroom, punctuating the silence between adults wrestling with coincidence or destiny or whatever force had aligned their paths. I don't believe in debts, Michael said finally. What my grandfather did, what I did, those weren't transactions expecting repayment. I don't either, Rebecca agreed. But I do believe in responsibility. Her gaze traveled around the modest apartment, noting the carefully mended curtains, the second-hand furniture, the small touches that transformed limited space into a home. 43 children survived that fire, myself included. We all grew up, built lives, had children of our own. Now my son has been saved by Samuel Carter's grandson. That's not coincidence. That's legacy. She rose to leave, but paused at the door. The Safe Haven program launches next week at the community center. Your grandfather used to volunteer there on weekends. I'd like you to be part of the announcement, but it's your choice. Either way, your family remains under my protection. After she departed, Michael opened the folder and reviewed its contents. The position description outlined responsibilities that matched his practical skills and ethical instincts. The compensation package would eliminate his debt and secure Sophie's future. The housing offer described a renovated apartment complex 10 blocks away, close enough to maintain community connections but in a safer neighborhood with better schools. The silver pocket watch ticked steadily on the coffee table. Michael picked it up, feeling its familiar weight. For years, he'd preserved it as a connection to family history. Now he understood it represented something larger, choices made in critical moments, protection offered without calculation, courage that created futures spanning generations. A decision crystallized, not because of money or opportunity, but because the watch hands finally aligned with something true. Some legacies weren't meant to be merely preserved. They were meant to continue. The next morning dawned clear after days of rain. Sophie emerged from her bedroom clutching 2 orange paper cranes. One for her pocket, one for his, their matched protection renewed. Michael helped her with breakfast, reviewed her homework, and prepared for their usual walk to school. When he opened the front door, everything changed. Rebecca Winters stood on his doorstep, Lucas partially hidden behind her legs. The security perimeter had expanded, men in tactical gear, redirecting morning traffic and curious onlookers. Neighbors froze phones, recording the unexpected scene. Before Michael could speak, Rebecca knelt down to Sophie's eye level. She reached into her purse and produced another blue silk scarf identical to the one Lucas wore. Your father protected my son when no one else would, she said, voice carrying clearly to the gathered audience. From this moment forward, your family to us. She wrapped the scarf gently around Sophie's shoulders with ceremonial care. When you wear this, you're safe. That's my promise to you. Sophie's hand rose to touch the soft fabric wonder, replacing her usual caution around strangers. It matches Lucas's, she whispered. That's right, Rebecca confirmed, because you both deserve the same protection. She rose to face Michael, extending a small silver key. This opens the memorial garden we're building at the community center. Your grandfather's name will be engraved on the entrance, along with all 43 people he saved. But more importantly, this key opens the Safe Haven emergency shelter we're creating in the same location. Michael accepted the key, its weight significant beyond metal. As he did, Lucas stepped forward and carefully pinned an orange paper crane to Rebecca's jacket just above her heart. Sophie taught me how to make these, the boy explained with 6-year-old solemnity. She said heroes need protection too. The moment expanded beyond the narrow street with its security perimeter and curious neighbors, beyond the corporate power plays and media narratives. It reached back 25 years to a burning building where one man's choices created ripples, still spreading outward. It extended forward to whatever future might emerge from this unexpected connection between families, separated by circumstance, but united by a legacy of protection. The silver pocket watch ticked steadily in Michael's pocket, keeping time not just for the day's appointments, but for generations of choices yet unmade. He closed his hand around the key, feeling its edges press against his palm, a tangible promise that some stories don't end with sacrifice. Sometimes they're just beginning. The community center parking lot transformed into a media staging ground, satellite trucks and camera crews jostling for position behind hastily erected barricades. Michael shifted uncomfortably in the passenger seat of Rebecca's Tesla as they approached, acutely aware of his secondhand dress shirt and department store tie. The sling supporting his injured shoulder created an awkward bulge beneath his jacket, a visible reminder of how quickly life could pivot on a single decision. "This isn't necessary," he muttered, watching reporters test microphones and adjust lighting equipment. "I don't need a public announcement." Rebecca guided the vehicle toward a private entrance at the rear of the building, where security personnel created a protective corridor. "It's not about what you need, Michael. It's about correcting a narrative that should have been fixed 25 years ago." Her fingers tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "My mother tried to find your family after the fire." The city stonewalled her at every turn. Michael absorbed this new information, another piece in the puzzle of their intertwined histories. Why would officials hide my grandfather's identity? Records conveniently disappeared. Rebecca parked in a reserved space, turning to face him fully. Municipal budgets had been slashed that year. The electrical inspection that should have identified fire hazards never happened. Someone needed to avoid liability. The implication hung between them. Samuel Carter had died saving children from a preventable disaster, then been deliberately erased from public record. Michael's instinct to protect Sophie from this knowledge intensified. She waited at school, blissfully unaware of press conferences and corporate maneuvers, learning multiplication tables while adults rewrote history around her. Inside the community center, a small army of event coordinators made final preparations. The historic building had served the neighborhood for decades, its brick exterior weathered but dignified. Samuel Carter had volunteered here on weekends, teaching woodworking classes to local children. Now his grandson stood in the renovated main hall, surrounded by photographs chronicling 43 lives saved. Teachers, doctors, business owners, parents, all existing because one man chose courage over safety. Rebecca appeared at Michael's side, Lucas trailing behind her, clutching something in his small hands. "He's nervous about speaking," she confessed, maternal concern momentarily overshadowing CEO confidence. "He wants to give Sophie something first." Lucas approached tentatively, extending a carefully wrapped package. "For your sister," his voice barely audible above the pre-event bustle. "I made it myself." Michael accepted the gift with appropriate solemnity, tucking it into his jacket pocket alongside Sophie's orange crane. "She'll love it. You did a great job." The boy's face brightened before he retreated behind his mother, seeking the security of her presence. Rebecca's protective instincts radiated almost visibly, her body angling slightly to shield him from nearby photographers attempting candid shots. Michael recognized the stance. He'd adopted it countless times with Sophie. A production assistant appeared with schedule adjustments and microphone checks. 5 minutes until the press conference. The Safe Haven announcement first, then the Carter Legacy Fund, followed by Michael. Rebecca interrupted her tone, brooking no argument. "We need a minute." She guided him toward a quiet alcove away from curious ears and cameras. "This is your story too. If you're uncomfortable with any part of this, tell me now." The consideration surprised him. Most wealthy people Michael had encountered viewed working-class lives as abstract concepts or convenient narratives. Rebecca seemed genuinely concerned about his agency in the unfolding events. "I spent years believing my grandfather died in an accident at work," Michael admitted. "Finding out he was a hero who saved 43 kids, including you. That's still sinking in. But seeing his name finally recognized, that matters." Rebecca studied him with unexpected vulnerability. "Sometimes I wonder if I've done enough with the life he gave me. Building a company seems inadequate compared to running into a burning building." Michael hadn't anticipated this confession, this glimpse behind corporate armor. For someone who'd lost a spouse while raising a child alone, as he had, perhaps their common ground extended beyond a historical fire. You created jobs, built something meaningful, raised a good kid by yourself. The words emerged before he could filter them. My grandfather would be proud of that return on investment. Her smile reached her eyes, creating momentary connection that transcended their different circumstances. She opened her mouth to respond when her security director approached with urgent whispers that transformed her expression. Rebecca's posture stiffened, CEO persona reasserting itself. Change of plans, she announced to the waiting staff. We need to move Lucas to a secure location immediately. Her gaze fixed on Michael. Someone just tried to breach our security perimeter. Dark SUV fake credentials disappeared before we could apprehend them. Michael's protective instincts flared instantly. Sophie, if someone was targeting Rebecca's son again, his daughter might also be vulnerable by association. I need to get to her school. Already handled, Rebecca assured him, gesturing to her security director. 2 additional personnel were dispatched to maintain surveillance. She's safe. The confidence in her statement provided minimal comfort. Michael had learned through hard experience that safe was always conditional, temporary, subject to revision without notice. Elizabeth had been safe after her first round of treatment and until cancer returned with devastating efficiency. Their finances had been safe until medical bills consumed their savings. Safety existed primarily as a comforting fiction. We should cancel the announcement, he suggested, calculating fastest routes to Sophie's school despite Rebecca's assurances. Rebecca's expression hardened with unexpected resolve. That's exactly what they want. To disrupt our plans, force us into defensive positions. Her voice lowered steel beneath silk. I spent 25 years searching for your family. I won't let Harrison Rhodes or anyone else prevent me from setting the record straight. Michael recognized the stubborn determination mirroring his own approach to adversity. They shared this trait at least, refusing to retreat when protecting what mattered. Still, the calculated risk seemed unnecessary. Is a press conference worth endangering the kids? The community center director interrupted their exchange, oblivious to security concerns. Mrs. Winters, the reporters are asking when we'll start. Rebecca made a quick decision, authority evident in her bearing. Tell them there's been a slight delay. Technical difficulties. Her attention returned to Michael. This isn't just about publicity. The Safe Haven program provides security resources for vulnerable children across the city. Delaying its launch means more kids at risk. Michael weighed the competing priorities: immediate safety versus broader protection. His grandfather had faced a similar calculation in that burning building decades ago. Stay safe outside or risk everything to save others. The silver pocket watch pressed against his chest, its steady ticking a reminder of legacy and responsibility. 10 minutes, he conceded. We do the announcement, launch the program, then get both kids to secure locations. Rebecca nodded, alliance formed in shared purpose, if not shared circumstances. She activated her phone, issuing rapid instructions to her security team, while Michael scanned the room for potential threats, hypervigilance triggered by new danger. The silver key to the memorial garden felt suddenly heavier in his pocket, its symbolic weight transformed by practical concerns. The press conference proceeded under heightened security, Rebecca and Michael presenting a united front, despite the tension thrumming beneath the surface. Reporters captured the official narrative. Heroic maintenance worker posthumously recognized, successful CEO paying forward, her second chance community center transformed into safe haven for vulnerable children. Cameras flashed as Rebecca presented Michael with a ceremonial plaque bearing Samuel Carter's name and the names of all 43 children saved from the fire. Today we correct the record, Rebecca announced to the assembled press. Samuel Carter didn't die anonymously. He created a legacy that continues through his grandson Michael, who demonstrated the same instinctive courage when he protected my son. Michael accepted the plaque with appropriate gravity, uncomfortable in the spotlight, but committed to honoring his grandfather's memory. The narrative felt simultaneously true and incomplete. The official story omitted Harrison Rhodes' involvement in the parking lot, shooting the attempted abduction, the ongoing security concerns. Sanitized reality for public consumption. As the media event concluded, Rebecca's security director approached with another urgent update. The breach attempt wasn't isolated. 3 additional security incidents at different locations suggested coordinated surveillance. Their vehicles had been tracked returning to abandoned properties owned by shell companies. "I need to get Sophie," Michael insisted as they moved toward the exit, protective instincts overwhelming all other considerations. Rebecca placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Wait," her security team created a protective formation around them as she explained. "If they're watching us, they're watching the school too. We need to extract both children carefully, not rush in and potentially lead threats directly to them." The rational argument did nothing to ease Michael's growing anxiety. His experience with crisis had always been direct, immediate action. Fix the electrical failure, repair the damage, solve the problem. Strategic patience felt like surrender when his daughter might be in danger. Rebecca recognized his internal struggle. "I understand, Michael, but sometimes the most protective choice isn't the most obvious one." Their vehicles departed the community center in carefully orchestrated sequence, decoy cars heading in multiple directions, while Michael and Rebecca exited in an unmarked maintenance van. The security team's efficiency suggested considerable experience, with threat management raising questions about what other dangers Rebecca had faced as a female CEO in a male-dominated industry. The van navigated side streets, avoiding main thoroughfares where traffic cameras might track their movements. Michael checked his phone repeatedly, willing Sophie's school to appear on the screen. Rebecca maintained calm exterior while issuing continuous instructions through a secure communication channel, coordinating simultaneous extraction of both children. She's been doing this longer than she's letting on, Michael realized. The practiced efficiency, the contingency planning, these weren't reactive measures but established protocols. Harrison Rhodes wasn't her first adversary. "Our security team intercepted communications suggesting industrial espionage," Rebecca explained, confirming his suspicions. Harrison wasn't just planning a hostile, almost takeover. He was selling proprietary technology to international competitors. "When I blocked the merger, he needed leverage." Michael processed the implications. His daughter had been endangered not by random violence, but by corporate warfare. The gulf between their worlds suddenly seemed unbridgeable. Billionaire chess played with ordinary lives as collateral damage. "The plan was to hold Lucas until I approved the merger," Rebecca continued, voice controlled, despite the horrific scenario. "His mother gave up her principled stand to save her child." That's how they framed it. The board would have had no choice but to support the decision under those circumstances. Michael's shoulder throbbed beneath the sling, physical pain echoing emotional distress. This wasn't his world. Electrical systems followed predictable patterns. Current flowed along established pathways. Problems could be diagnosed and repaired. Human malice operated by different rules, creating dangers he couldn't anticipate or fix with tools in his belt. The van slowed as they approached Sophie's school from an unexpected direction. Rebecca's security team had already implemented extraction protocols, her daughter waiting in the principal's office with two plainclothes officers. Michael's anxiety peaked as he scanned the surrounding area for unfamiliar vehicles or suspicious individuals. The school building looked deceptively normal. Children visible through windows, teachers continuing lessons, administrative staff answering phones. Yet beneath this ordinary surface lurked extraordinary threat. Michael remembered feeling similar cognitive dissonance when Elizabeth first received her diagnosis. How could the world continue functioning when foundations were crumbling? Sophie emerged from the building, flanked by security personnel, her small backpack clutched against her chest. She spotted Michael and ran toward him, relief replacing the confusion on her face. His body absorbed her impact as she collided with his legs, her arms wrapping tightly around his waist. The orange paper crane peeked from her pocket, its bright color incongruous against the gravity of the situation. "Let's go home," she pleaded, unaware of the complexity surrounding their circumstances. "I want to go home." Michael exchanged glances with Rebecca over Sophie's head, unspoken understanding passing between them. Home wasn't currently safe. Neither was Rebecca's penthouse apartment, likely under surveillance. They needed neutral territory somewhere unexpected. Actually, Michael knelt to Sophie's level, injecting enthusiasm he didn't feel into his voice. "We're going on a special trip first. Remember how Ms. Winters said we'd be staying somewhere new for a while?" Sophie's expression shifted from confusion to tentative excitement. "With Lucas." As if summoned by her question, Rebecca's phone signaled an incoming message. Her shoulders relaxed incrementally as she read the update. "Lucas has been secured. They're en route to the location." The location turned out to be a lakeside property 90 minutes from the city, A modernist structure of glass and stone nestled among pine trees, its existence absent from property records or social media. Rebecca's family retreat maintained under multiple layers of corporate ownership to ensure privacy. Michael felt increasing disorientation as they passed through 3 security checkpoints before reaching the main house. Sophie pressed her face against the vehicle window, childhood wonder temporarily overriding the strange circumstances. "There's a lake and a dock. Can we go swimming?" Her innocent enthusiasm highlighted the absurdity of their situation. Corporate espionage and security threats juxtaposed against a 7-year-old's simple desire to splash in water. Michael found himself caught between worlds belonging fully to neither. Not wealthy enough to navigate Rebecca's reality, no longer able to return to his previous existence. The house revealed itself as they rounded the final curve. Architecturally impressive, without ostentation, designed to blend with natural surroundings rather than dominate them. Floor-to-ceiling windows captured lake views, while strategically placed cameras monitored the perimeter. Beauty and security in careful balance. Lucas was already there, running toward the vehicle as they approached. He stopped short of the door, uncertainty replacing initial enthusiasm, as he waited for his mother's permission to greet their visitors. Rebecca nodded her approval and he surged forward, focused entirely on Sophie rather than the adults. "I've got board games and there's a treehouse." His excitement mirrored Sophie's as children recognized potential adventure in circumstances adults recognized as danger. Michael helped Sophie from the vehicle, hyper-vigilant despite the secure setting. His instinct to protect expanded beyond his daughter, to include Lucas, Rebecca, even the security personnel who risked themselves to ensure their safety. The weight of this extended responsibility pressed against his chest alongside the silver pocket watch. Inside, the house revealed tasteful luxury, comfortable rather than ostentatious, clearly designed for family use rather than impression management. Photographs lined shelves and walls. Rebecca with her late husband Mark Lucas as a baby extended family at various gatherings. Humanity rather than wealth dominated the space. "My grandfather built this place," Rebecca explained, watching Michael absorb his surroundings. "He was a carpenter before he became successful. Started with nothing, worked his way up." She traced her fingers along hand-carved banisters. "He never let me forget where we came from." The revelation shifted Michael's perception slightly. Rebecca's wealth wasn't generational entitlement, but relatively recent acquisition. Her mother had worked double shifts, her grandfather had been a tradesman, not so different from his own background. The security team established operational protocols while the children explored under supervision. Michael found himself in the kitchen with Rebecca, watching her prepare coffee with practiced efficiency. No staff, no assistants, just a mother making caffeine after a stressful day. The normalcy of the action created momentary illusion of ordinary circumstances. "How long do we stay here?" Michael asked, calculating workdays, missed bills coming due, despite crisis interrupting income. Rebecca measured coffee grounds with precise movements. "Until we neutralize the threat." Her corporate vocabulary applied to personal danger. "My legal team is building the case against Harrison, collecting evidence of his international connections. The FBI has been notified." Michael processed this information, recognizing dimensions beyond his experience. White-collar crime, federal investigations, international conspiracies. These existed in movies and news headlines, not in the practical reality of electrical repairs and school pickups that defined his daily existence. And Sophie's school, her friends. Our apartment, the questions emerged as he contemplated extended displacement. Rebecca didn't minimize these concerns. "We have tutors available. Her classwork will continue. As for your apartment," her hesitation suggested complications. "Our security assessment indicates it may have been compromised during our absence." The implication landed with sickening clarity. Someone had been in his home, touched his belongings, violated the sanctuary he'd created for Sophie after her mother's death. Michael's jaw tightened with helpless anger, his good hand curling into a fist. "We've secured the premises," Rebecca continued. "Nothing appears missing, but we can't guarantee." Michael cut her off, unable to process further violations. "I need to see it myself." Rebecca's expression reflected understanding rather than opposition. "Tomorrow, with proper security, we'll arrange it." The conversation paused as Sophie and Lucas burst into the kitchen, childhood energy momentarily dispelling adult concerns. They carried armfuls of board games discovered in a closet, faces flushed with excitement and normal kid emotions untainted by security threats or corporate espionage. "Can we play Monopoly?" Sophie asked, looking between the adults with hopeful expectation. The request created an unexpected moment of domesticity. Two single parents, two children gathered around a table for an ordinary family activity under extraordinary circumstances. Michael exchanged glances with Rebecca, mutual recognition passing between them. Both understood the importance of maintaining normalcy for children during crisis. The remainder of the day unfolded in surreal juxtaposition. Board games and security briefings, pizza delivery thoroughly vetted by armed personnel, bedtime stories read, while surveillance teams monitored perimeter alerts. Sophie fell asleep clutching her orange paper crane, Lucas nearby with his blue scarf. Michael watched them from the doorway, struck by their resilience in circumstances that would challenge most adults. Rebecca appeared beside him, voice lowered to avoid disturbing the children. "Tomorrow we implement countermeasures." Her CEO efficiency applied to personal threat assessment. Harrison's assets are being frozen. His international partners are being identified. Michael absorbed this information with growing awarenesses of different worlds operating by different rules. In his reality, problems were solved with tools, physical labor, direct action. In Rebecca's power moved through financial systems, legal structures, corporate maneuvers. And if that doesn't work, he challenged needing practical contingency beyond corporate strategy. Rebecca's expression hardened with unexpected ferocity, maternal protection transcending professional calculation. "Then we use less conventional methods." Her tone left no doubt about her willingness to operate outside traditional boundaries when protecting her child. The evening concluded with Michael on the deck overlooking the lake's silver pocket watch open in his palm. Stars reflected on still water creating illusion of infinite space above and below. The watch ticked steadily, marking time between heartbeats, between breaths, between decisions that shape futures beyond immediate comprehension. Rebecca emerged from the house carrying two mugs, the CEO temporarily replaced by a tired mother, in comfortable clothes, hair pulled back from her face. The night air carried slight chill reminder of approaching autumn. She offered one mug to Michael before settling into an adjacent chair, mutual exhaustion creating temporary alliance. When Mark died, Rebecca's voice cut through darkness without preamble. "I thought the hardest part would be grief." It wasn't. The hardest part was realizing how vulnerable Lucas and I had become without protection. Michael sipped coffee that probably cost more per pound than he earned per hour, yet tasted like any other caffeine consumed during crisis. His own experience with Elizabeth's death had taught similar lessons about vulnerability, though financial pressures had dominated his particular version of widowhood. After the funeral, the threat started. Rebecca continued, gaze fixed on distant shoreline. Nothing overt, just subtle reminders that a woman alone might want male guidance, male protection, male oversight of the company her husband had helped build. Michael recognized the pattern from comments his female colleagues endured on construction sites, though corporate versions probably employed more sophisticated language to convey similar messages. The gender dynamics remained consistent across social classes. Men attempting to claim control over women's autonomy, whether through crude comments or boardroom maneuvers. Harrison positioned himself as my mentor. Rebecca's hands tightened around her mug. Presented himself as Mark's trusted friend, someone who understood his vision for the company. Gradually tried consolidating power, isolating me from other board members. The tactical approach sounded familiar to Michael, reminiscent of predatory contractors who isolated elderly homeowners before recommending unnecessary and expensive repairs. Different context, same manipulative strategy. "I stopped it," Rebecca concluded with quiet intensity. "Restructured, the board secured my position, protected what Mark and I built together." Harrison never forgave me for choosing independence over his guidance. Michael absorbed this history, understanding it as prologue to current dangers. Harrison's attempt to abduct Lucas represented escalation rather than initiation, continuation of established pattern rather than new threat. The revelation placed their current circumstances in context while suggesting potential vulnerabilities beyond immediate security concerns. "The investment fund you mentioned at the press conference," Michael asked, connecting disparate elements. "The Carter Legacy Fund, is it real?" Rebecca's expression shifted, surprise replacing exhaustion. "Of course it's real. 43 families contributing for 25 years. 2.3 million in capital plus investment returns." Michael processed this information, searching for manipulation or hidden agenda. His natural skepticism, developed through years of financial struggle and system navigation, resisted accepting such unexpected windfall without questioning motives or strings attached. And it's mine, just like that, his disbelief evident despite attempt at neutral inquiry. "It was always yours," Rebecca corrected, understanding his suspicion. "We just couldn't find you to give it to you." Her gaze softened with unexpected vulnerability. "Do you think I created an elaborate fiction about your grandfather just to impress the press?" The question hung between them, highlighting fundamental trust issues created by their different realities. People with Rebecca's resources operated by different rules, wielded influence beyond ordinary comprehension. Michael had seen wealthy clients manipulate situations to their advantage, creating illusions of generosity while serving self-interest. "I think power creates certain opportunities." He finally answered, choosing honesty over diplomatic evasion. "And privileged people sometimes use those opportunities to shape stories that make them feel better about themselves." Rebecca didn't immediately defend herself or express offense at his implied accusation. Instead, she reached into her pocket and withdrew the worn photograph he'd seen before, her 7-year-old self in Samuel Carter's arms outside the burning building. "I carried this for 25 years before I knew your name, before I had resources or influence or any reason to manipulate anyone." Michael accepted the photograph, studying details visible in moonlight. His grandfather's soot-covered face, the determination in his expression, the small girl clutched protectively against his chest. The image captured something essential about Samuel Carter, something Michael recognized from memories of the man who'd taught him to fish, to build birdhouses, to repair broken things rather than replace them. "I remember him teaching me that tools need proper maintenance," Michael admitted, offering truth in exchange for Rebecca's vulnerability. "He'd clean every wrench, every screwdriver, saying they deserved respect because they helped us create." His gaze returned to the photograph. "Never told me about saving kids from a fire." "Ordinary heroism," Rebecca suggested. So integrated into his character, he didn't consider it exceptional. Michael pondered this assessment, wondering how many other acts of courage or kindness his grandfather had performed without recording or recognition. The silver pocket watch ticked steadily in his palm, keeping time for memories and legacies passing between generations. The moment of connection shattered as alarms triggered throughout the property. Security lights activated, illuminating the perimeter as armed personnel moved with practiced efficiency toward predetermined positions. Rebecca's phone vibrated with emergency protocols, while Michael instinctively moved toward the house, protective focus immediately shifting to the children inside. Rebecca intercepted incoming security reports, her expression transitioning from alarm to controlled assessment. "Perimeter breach at the North Access Road," she informed Michael as they hurried inside. "Two vehicles, professional approach. They're testing our defenses." Michael's limited experience with security systems provided minimal context for evaluating threat levels or appropriate responses. His expertise lay in electrical currents, in circuit breakers, not tactical defense or threat neutralization. The vulnerability created by this knowledge gap amplified his protective anxiety as they reached the children's room. Sophie and Lucas remained asleep despite the alarm, their small forms illuminated by security lighting through the windows. Michael positioned himself between potential danger and the children's primitive protective instinct overriding strategic considerations. Rebecca activated additional security measures from her phone, her efficiency suggesting previous experience with similar situations. The security director appeared in the doorway, posture indicating controlled urgency rather than immediate danger. Intruders withdrew when countermeasures deployed, he reported in professional tones. Surveillance captured partial license plates. "We're coordinating with local authorities." Michael processed this information, recognizing the incident as reconnaissance rather than direct assault, threat assessment rather than immediate danger. Still, the escalation pattern suggested increasing risk, from parking lot shootings to community center breach attempt to direct approach at the secure property. Each incident testing boundaries, identifying vulnerabilities, gathering intelligence for some future confrontation. "They're getting bolder," he observed, tactical awareness emerging despite limited security experience. "Testing response times, security protocols." Rebecca nodded, CEO analytical skills applied to personal threat assessment. This wasn't a serious attempt. They wanted to gauge our preparedness, identify weak points. The clinical discussion of danger might have continued if Sophie hadn't stirred small voice cutting through adult strategy. Daddy, what's happening? Michael shifted immediately from security analysis to parental reassurance, kneeling beside her bed to provide comfort rather than accurate information. Just some lights outside, sweetheart. Everything's fine. The necessary lie created familiar dissonance, protecting innocence while preserving vigilance, shielding children from harsh realities while preparing for their implications. Michael had navigated similar territory after Elizabeth's diagnosis, answering Sophie's questions with age-appropriate honesty that omitted medical prognosis statistics. Sophie's sleepy gaze moved past Michael to the window, where security lights illuminated armed personnel moving across the property. Those men have guns. The observation eliminated possibility of complete reassurance. Michael exchanged glances with Rebecca, silent communication, passing between parents familiar with difficult explanations. Lucas stirred beside Sophie's blue scarf tangled around his shoulders as he oriented to unexpected awakening. Remember how I told you we'd be staying somewhere safe for a while? Michael redirected, choosing partial truth over complete evasion. Ms. Winters has special security to make sure we're protected. Sophie's intelligence wouldn't accept simplistic explanation. Her skepticism emerged through direct challenge. Protected from what Rebecca joined Michael at the children's bedside, maternal instinct, temporarily superseding CEO efficiency. Sometimes when grown-ups disagree about business, they forget to use their words properly, she explained with careful simplicity. The security is here to remind everyone to play nicely. The child-friendly explanation contained essential truth while omitting threatening details. Corporate espionage translated to playground rules, security personnel reframed as behavioral monitors rather than armed defenders. Michael recognized the delicate balance Rebecca maintained between reassurance and preparation. Sophie seemed to accept this explanation, childhood desire for security momentarily satisfied. She clutched her orange paper crane, seeking comfort from familiar ritual. Lucas did the same with his blue scarf, mirroring her self-soothing behavior. The parallel actions highlighted their shared vulnerability despite different backgrounds. The adults withdrew once children settled back to sleep, moving to the main living area where security personnel established command center operations. Maps displayed property boundaries, surveillance feeds, monitored access points, communication systems, tracked response team movements. Michael absorbed these unfamiliar protocols with growing awareness of how different Rebecca's daily reality was from his own. This has happened before, he realized, watching her navigate security systems with practiced efficiency. She's built protocols for this specific scenario. Rebecca caught his observation, reading the unspoken question. After Mark died, there were 3 separate attempts to access our residence, she confirmed without emotion. 2 kidnapping scenarios were intercepted in planning stages. Corporate competition doesn't always follow SEC regulations. The matter-of-fact delivery highlighted normalized danger in Rebecca's world. Threats anticipated and managed as operational costs rather than extraordinary circumstances. Michael considered similar normalization in his own experience. Electrical hazards, construction site injuries, financial precarity. Different dangers, similar acceptance as unavoidable reality. Their security team identified the vehicles involved in the perimeter testing. Rental cars obtained with falsified identification connections, leading to offshore accounts linked to international technology firms competing with Horizon Technologies. Harrison Road's network extended beyond domestic competitors, creating broader threat landscape than initially apparent. He's selling your technology, Michael concluded, connecting established facts with new information. The merger was cover for intellectual property theft. Rebecca nodded, validating his assessment. We developed quantum encryption protocols that make current security systems obsolete. She gestured toward operational equipment surrounding them, including what we're using here. The revelation created new context for Harrison's desperation and escalating tactics. Not merely corporate power struggle, but potential market domination worth billions. Lucas represented leverage worth significant risk, explaining resources dedicated to breaching increasingly sophisticated security measures. This isn't just about the merger anymore, Rebecca continued, CEO analytical skills fully engaged. If our technology reaches international markets through unauthorized channels, national security implications extend beyond corporate interests. Michael absorbed these implications with growing discomfort. His practical problem-solving skills applied to electrical systems and household repairs, not international espionage or national security threats. Yet circumstances had thrust him and Sophie into precisely such scenario, creating responsibilities beyond his experience or expertise. The security team continued monitoring perimeter alerts, while Rebecca coordinated with federal authorities regarding Harrison's international connections. Michael found himself relegated to observer status, his protective instincts lacking outlet in scenario managed by professionals with specialized training. The forced passivity intensified his anxiety, creating restless energy without appropriate channel. Morning arrived without further security incidents, though surveillance remained active throughout the property. Sophie and Lucas awoke with childhood resilience, their concerns about nocturnal alarms quickly displaced by lakeside exploration possibilities. Rebecca arranged remote tutoring sessions to maintain educational continuity, while security personnel established protective perimeter around outdoor recreation areas. Michael watched the children from the deck, hypervigilance tempered by their obvious enjoyment of natural surroundings. Sophie rarely experienced lakes or forests, their urban apartment offering limited access to outdoor spaces beyond concrete playgrounds. Her excitement at discovering tadpoles and skipping stones created momentary illusion of normal childhood despite extraordinary circumstances. Rebecca joined him, professional attire replaced by casual clothing, more suitable for lakeside morning. The transformation emphasized different aspects of her personality. CEO efficiency temporarily suspended maternal warmth, more evident in relaxed posture and simplified appearance. Security identified 3 additional vehicles conducting surveillance from public access points around the lake. She reported maintaining information sharing despite modified presentation. They're establishing observation posts rather than attempting direct approach. Michael processed this update tactical assessment, developing despite limited experience, gathering intelligence, preparing for something bigger. Rebecca nodded, validating his analysis. The FBI has frozen Harrison's domestic accounts, but his international resources remain partially accessible. They've identified communications with mercenary groups known for extraction operations. The escalation pattern suggested preparation for direct intervention rather than continued reconnaissance. Michael's protective instincts flared in response to increased threat assessment. We should move again. Different location, different security profile. We would if we could, Rebecca acknowledged with unexpected candor. But Harrison's network has penetrated deeper than we initially realized. She hesitated before continuing, weighing disclosure against security protocols. We've identified a potential information leak within my security team. The revelation landed with particular impact. Their protective infrastructure potentially compromised from within, trusted personnel, possibly transmitting location data or security protocols to hostile forces. Michael's natural skepticism regarding wealth and power found confirmation in this betrayal, reinforcing his instinct to rely on personal capability rather than institutional protection. How do we know this place is secure? He challenged parental protection, overriding diplomatic consideration. Rebecca didn't dismiss his concern or defend her security apparatus. Instead, she offered practical assessment. We don't not with absolute certainty, but we've limited information access, compartmentalized protocols. The lake house exists off corporate records maintained through family trust structures rather than company resources. The explanation provided limited reassurance given demonstrated sophistication of those pursuing them. Michael's gaze returned to Sophie and Lucas at the shoreline, their small figures representing vulnerability, requiring protection beyond conventional security measures. His practical mind began formulating contingencies, escape routes, defensive possibilities beyond official protocols. I need to get into my apartment, he reiterated. Previous request gaining urgency with new information. There are things we might need if we have to move quickly. Rebecca studied him with analytical assessment, weighing risks against potential benefits. Her security director would advise against personal intervention, prioritizing established protocols over individual action. Yet circumstances suggested conventional approaches might be compromised by internal breach. This afternoon, she decided CEO authority evident despite casual presentation. Limited team direct approach, minimal electronic communication. The compromise acknowledged Michael's request while maintaining operational security parameters. His shoulder throbbed beneath the sling as stress intensified existing injury, physical discomfort mirroring emotional tension. The silver pocket watch pressed against his chest, its steady ticking a reminder of generational responsibility passing from Samuel Carter to his grandson, in moments requiring courage over caution. Security arranged vehicle transport, while Rebecca coordinated remote business operations, her company continuing to function despite her physical absence. Michael recognized similar practical necessity in his own responsibilities. Apartment rent, utility bills, work commitments remained despite crisis interruption. Ordinary obligations continuing alongside extraordinary circumstances. Sophie approached from the shoreline, face flushed with excitement as she displayed small collection of polished stones gathered from the beach. "Look what Lucas and I found. We're making a treasure collection." Michael knelt to examine her discoveries, providing appropriate parental enthusiasm despite preoccupation with security concerns. The contrast between childhood innocence and adult danger awareness created familiar dissonance, protecting joy while preparing for threat, preserving wonder while anticipating harm. "That's great, sweetheart. Keep them safe and we can take them home later." The promise contained hope rather than certainty, aspiration toward future normalcy that circumstances might prevent. Sophie's expression shifted from excitement to unexpected perception, childhood intuition, recognizing unspoken adult concerns. "Are the bad men still trying to find us?" The direct question eliminated possibility of complete reassurance or simplified explanation. Michael chose careful honesty over false security, respecting her intelligence while moderating frightening details. "Some people are making poor choices right now. That's why we're staying here where it's safe." Sophie absorbed this information with solemn consideration before reaching into her pocket to extract her orange paper crane. She held it toward Michael with ceremonial seriousness. "You should take this with you when you go to our apartment, for extra protection." The gesture pierced protective barriers carefully maintained throughout the crisis. Michael accepted the paper bird, its bright color incongruous against the gravity of their circumstances. The childish talisman represented faith in parental protection, trust that adults could navigate dangerous waters and return safely to shore. "I'll keep it right here," he promised, placing the crane carefully in his shirt pocket alongside the silver watch. Double protection. Sophie nodded with satisfied certainty before returning to Lucas at the shoreline, childhood resilience allowing continued joy despite acknowledged danger. Michael watched her departure with complex emotion. Pride in her courage mingled with regret for her premature introduction to life's harsher realities. Rebecca observed the interaction from slight distance, maternal understanding evident in her expression. "Children adapt to circumstances we believe would break them," she noted, joining Michael as Sophie rejoined Lucas at water's edge. "Their capacity for joy, despite danger, puts our adult fears to shame." The observation contained insight earned through parallel experience. Both single parents navigating vulnerability while projecting security, both protecting children from dangers they couldn't completely eliminate. Despite vast differences in resources and circumstances, this fundamental challenge created unexpected common ground. The security team completed transport arrangements with minimal electronic communication, reducing digital footprint that might reveal their movements. Michael prepared for apartment retrieval mission with growing anticipation, passive protection, transitioning to active engagement. His practical skills might have limited application to international espionage, but direct action within familiar territory offered opportunity to contribute beyond mere dependence on Rebecca's security apparatus. As departure time approached, Rebecca provided encrypted communication device with limited connectivity. "Use this only if absolutely necessary," she instructed with professional efficiency. "Direct line to secure server. No transmission through commercial networks." The technology represented sophistication beyond Michael's typical equipment, highlighting resource disparity between their worlds. Yet the gesture also acknowledged his agency in the unfolding scenario. Partner rather than passive protectee, contributor rather than dependent. "Be careful," Rebecca added, as security personnel prepared vehicle transport, professional demeanor softening briefly. Lucas would be devastated if something happened to Sophie's dad. The unexpected personal comment created momentary connection beyond security protocols or protective arrangements. Michael recognized genuine concern beneath professional exterior reminder, that Rebecca remained human despite CEO efficiency or billionaire resources. "I'll bring back ice cream," he promised, intentional lightness masking serious intent. The kids deserve some normalcy in all this craziness. Rebecca's smile acknowledged the gesture's deeper purpose, maintaining childhood joy amid adult danger, preserving innocence within necessary security. The shared parental understanding transcended different backgrounds or resources, creating momentary alliance against forces threatening both families. As Michael departed in armored vehicle with minimal security escort, the silver pocket watch ticked steadily against his chest alongside Sophie's orange paper crane. Different generations of protection combined in symbolic form, reminding him that courage often meant moving toward danger rather than away from it when protecting what mattered most. The urban landscape gradually replaced lakeside serenity as they approached the city, everyday normalcy continuing despite extraordinary circumstances affecting those within the vehicle. Traffic flowed, pedestrians hurried along sidewalks, commerce proceeded, ordinary life unfolding in parallel with security threats and protective measures occupying Michael's reality. His apartment building appeared unchanged from exterior perspective, familiar brick facade, and weathered entrance, unremarkable within the neighborhood context. Yet knowledge of potential surveillance transformed ordinary structure into tactical consideration. Approach angles, visibility factors, security vulnerabilities, previously unnoticed, now glaringly apparent. The security team established perimeter monitoring before approving building entry, professional assessment confirming no immediate threats visible in surrounding area. Michael proceeded alone to maintain lower profile, regular resident returning home rather than protected asset requiring obvious security presence. The familiar weight of his keys provided momentary illusion of normalcy as he unlocked the apartment door. Muscle memory performing routine action despite extraordinary circumstances. Inside, the space remained exactly as they had left it. Sophie's homework on the kitchen table, breakfast dishes in the sink laundry basket waiting for weekend attention. Ordinary life suspended in their absence. Yet subtle wrongness permeated familiar space. Imperceptible disturbance in object arrangement. Microscopic shifts in furniture positioning, energetic disruption, impossible to identify through specific evidence. Someone had been here. Michael felt the violation viscerally protective territory breached by unknown intruders examining his and Sophie's private world. His practical mind overrode emotional reaction focusing on mission objectives rather than violated security. Essential items required priority attention. Clothing, medications, identification documents, sentimental objects. Sophie would miss during extended absence. The silver pocket watch ticked steadily as he moved efficiently through rooms gathering necessities while maintaining situational awareness. In Sophie's bedroom, he collected her favorite stuffed animals, school books, and framed family photograph from beside her bed. The ordinary objects represented stability during disruption, normalcy within extraordinary circumstances. His fingers brushed against something unexpected beneath her pillow. Another orange paper crane left behind during hasty departure. Michael secured the collection of essential items in Sophie's backpack, the weight of objects representing their fragmented life. Favorite stuffed animals, irreplaceable photographs, important documents. The orange paper squares and instruction book went in last practical recognition that their daughter would need continuation of her protection ritual, regardless of where they might ultimately settle. He closed the apartment door with finality, uncertain when or if they would return. The security team guided him through the service exit, tactical communication minimized to essential coordination. Throughout the extraction process, Michael's mind continued cataloging the evidence of intrusion he'd discovered. The subtle disarray of Sophie's art supplies, the moved kitchen items, the powered-down computer. Professional intruders rather than opportunistic criminals. Systematic information gathering rather than property theft. The violation extended beyond physical space into their sense of security, erasing the fragile stability he'd built following Elizabeth's death. During the return journey to the lake house, Rebecca's encrypted call confirmed the escalation pattern Michael had already intuited. The FBI had traced offshore cryptocurrency transfers, linking Harrison Rhodes to a specialized team with military backgrounds. Asset recovery specialists, in corporate terminology, effectively high-end kidnappers targeting children in custody disputes or corporate leverage situations. The clinical language barely masked a horrifying reality: professional operatives pursuing Lucas and, by association, Sophie. They've breached multiple digital security layers. Rebecca reported controlled urgency, evident beneath her professional tone. Email servers, cloud storage, surveillance networks. We have to assume all standard protocols are compromised. The SUV continued its circuitous route back toward the lake house, avoiding main roads and predictable paths. Michael's electrician background had taught him fundamental principles about system failures. When standard protection mechanisms were compromised, you fell back to secondary systems, then manual failsafes. Digital vulnerabilities required analog solutions. I might have something. He offered professional expertise finding unexpected application. My electrical certification gives me access to municipal infrastructure, utility tunnels, emergency service routes, maintenance facilities, places that don't appear on regular maps with minimal surveillance coverage. Rebecca's response carried genuine consideration rather than polite dismissal. That could be extremely valuable. Walk me through what you're thinking. For the next 20 minutes, they developed contingency options, utilizing Michael's specialized knowledge of city infrastructure. The partnership felt strangely balanced despite their vastly different backgrounds, her executive resources complementing his practical expertise, corporate connections enhancing trade skill applications. By the time they approached the lake house perimeter, they'd established multiple evacuation routes using electrical maintenance tunnels, connecting downtown districts to outer regions, bypassing conventional transportation networks. The increased security presence surrounding the property confirmed their concerns weren't theoretical. Additional personnel monitored perimeter boundaries, surveillance equipment tracked surrounding terrain, armored vehicles established protective formation. Michael's protective instinct expanded beyond Sophie to encompass Lucas, Rebecca, even the security staff putting themselves between danger and these children. Inside, Sophie and Lucas remained blissfully focused on their nature collection, arranging colorful stones by pattern and shape, pressing leaves between wax paper sheets. Their resilience created striking contrast against the intensifying security landscape, childhood joy persisting despite extraordinary circumstances. Michael maintained casual demeanor while delivering the essential items, presenting Sophie's favorite stuffed animals with deliberate normalcy that masked the growing threat awareness. Rebecca observed their reunion with maternal understanding, her own greeting from Lucas reflecting similar parent-child dynamics. Her professional composure yielded momentarily to genuine emotion as she knelt to examine his leaf collection, providing appropriate enthusiasm despite crisis management occupying mental background processes. That evening, after establishing ordinary bedtime routines for the children, crisis planning resumed with focused intensity. Rebecca spread surveillance intelligence across the dining table. Satellite imagery, facial recognition, captures vehicle identification documentation. Harrison's team had established observation points at strategic locations surrounding the lake property, suggesting coordinated approach rather than opportunistic surveillance. They're gathering intelligence for a comprehensive extraction operation. Rebecca assessed CEO analytical skills applied to tactical situation. These aren't amateur contractors. They have military backgrounds, specialized equipment, established extraction protocols. Michael studied the security assessment with growing appreciation for Rebecca's crisis management capabilities. Her corporate leadership skills transferred effectively to threat response, analyzing information, allocating resources, anticipating opposition strategies. Similar approach to his fieldwork, identifying electrical vulnerabilities, implementing preventive measures, designing backup systems. We need to consider worst-case scenarios. He suggested practical contingency planning overriding optimistic projections. If perimeter defense fails, if they breach the house, if electronic security systems are compromised, what's our final fallback position? Rebecca's expression reflected similar thinking. Ultimate protective measures beyond standard protocols. The original construction included a Cold War-era panic room beneath the east wing. Fully analog systems, manual locks, separate ventilation, not connected to digital networks or official property records. The revelation aligned with Michael's utility tunnel suggestion: infrastructure invisible to standard surveillance, physical security, independent of digital vulnerabilities. Both parents naturally gravitated toward protection methods beyond conventional electronic systems, shared instinct despite different backgrounds. Their planning continued through early morning hours, practical preparations proceeding alongside official security protocols. Michael's electrical expertise identified backup power options, communication alternatives, physical defense improvements. The collaboration bridged typical socioeconomic divides, his trade skills complementing her executive resources, working-class practicality, enhancing corporate capabilities. As dawn approached, security teams reported continued surveillance, but no direct approach attempts. Rebecca coordinated with federal authorities regarding Harrison's international connections, while Michael implemented physical modifications to doors, windows, and alternative exit routes. Both parents operated with parallel purpose, despite different methods, protecting children through respective capabilities. Sophie discovered Michael reinforcing window frames with additional locking mechanisms, her natural curiosity prompting questions about the activity. He provided simplified explanations, acknowledging security concerns without emphasizing danger, storm preparation rather than intruder prevention, safety measures rather than defensive fortifications. "You're fixing things like at our apartment," Sophie observed, watching him install additional locks, making everything stronger. The comment contained unintentional insight about his fundamental approach to life challenges. Michael had always responded to adversity through practical action, repairing problems, strengthening vulnerabilities, implementing tangible solutions. Elizabeth's illness had been the first challenge he couldn't fix with tools and determination, leaving emotional scars from futile efforts against unstoppable disease progression. Sometimes fixing things makes people feel better, even when they're worried about stuff they can't control, he explained, conscious of parallels between current security preparations and earlier medical helplessness. "Gives us something useful to do while waiting." Sophie considered this perspective with solemn thoughtfulness before retrieving Lucas to demonstrate the window reinforcement techniques. Both children displayed unexpected interest in his practical security measures, their participation transforming frightening circumstances into educational opportunity. Michael guided their assistants with age-appropriate tasks, measuring spaces, organizing supplies, testing completed modifications, creating productive engagement that channeled anxiety into action. Rebecca observed this impromptu teaching session with appreciative assessment, recognizing therapeutic value alongside practical utility. She joined the activity by contributing engineering perspective to physical modifications, her MIT education complementing Michael's trade experience. The collaborative problem-solving bridged socioeconomic divisions, CEO and electrician unified by protective purpose and parental instinct. The following week brought concerning developments. Harrison Rhodes had disappeared from FBI surveillance despite electronic monitoring and travel restrictions. Financial records indicated significant cryptocurrency transfers to offshore accounts shortly before his disappearance, suggesting pre-planned escape strategy with considerable resources supporting continued operations. "They've lost him," Rebecca summarized during security briefing. 48-hour Head Start digital footprint scrubbed through professional counter-surveillance measures. Their assessment indicates he's likely left the country. The revelation elevated threat assessment from monitored danger to unpredictable risk. Opponent operating outside official tracking systems with unknown capabilities and timeline. Michael processed implications with growing certainty that conventional protection methods remained insufficient against determined adversary with significant resources. "We can't maintain static position indefinitely." He observed practical assessment overriding immediate security. "The longer we stay in one location, the more intelligence they gather, the more vulnerabilities they identify." Rebecca nodded, reaching similar conclusion through parallel reasoning. "My security team contains unknown compromise elements. Digital systems remain vulnerable. Harrison's operatives continue surveillance despite federal awareness." This acknowledgement of system limitations represented significant shift from institutional reliance toward individual initiative, corporate structures yielding to personal responsibility when official protection proved inadequate. Both parents recognized necessity for unconventional approaches beyond established protocols. That evening, federal agents identified communication patterns suggesting imminent extraction operation preparation. Surveillance detected equipment, positioning, and personnel movement consistent with operation launch, rather than continued reconnaissance. The intelligence accelerated implementation of their contingency plan, utilizing Michael's infrastructure knowledge to relocate through municipal utility tunnels to secure facility beneath downtown district. The evacuation proceeded through maintenance road access point vehicles entering underground tunnel network through service entrance normally restricted to electrical repair crews. Concrete passages extended beneath city streets connecting power stations, water treatment facilities, emergency service infrastructure. Sophie and Lucas approached the movement as exciting adventure rather than security necessity, underground exploration overshadowing potential danger. "This is where you fix electricity," Sophie asked, impressed by extensive tunnel network extending beyond headlight illumination. "These tunnels connect important systems that keep the city working." Michael confirmed professional knowledge providing legitimate access to strategic resource. "They're like secret highways beneath streets where repair crews can reach equipment without digging up roads." The explanation transformed necessary evacuation into educational opportunity, adult necessity reframed through childhood curiosity lens. Lucas joined conversation with enthusiastic technical questions, engineering interest creating momentary distraction from surrounding circumstances. Rebecca observed their interaction with appreciative assessment. Michael's ability to maintain childhood normalcy within crisis context, practical knowledge transformed into engaging explanation. Their destination emerged at Tunnel Network Terminus, nondescript maintenance facility housing emergency response equipment for municipal power failures. The building contained basic accommodations designed for worker use during extended operations. Sleeping areas, kitchen facilities, communications equipment operating on separate grid from civilian systems. The underground location provided significant defensive advantages, limited access routes, structural protection, operational independence from compromised networks. The facility became their secure base over the next 3 weeks, while federal investigation into Harrison Roads expanded globally. Initial charges of attempted kidnapping and corporate espionage grew to include international technology transfer violations, money laundering conspiracy, and national security breaches. Digital evidence recovered from devices seized during his arrest attempt revealed extensive network of corporate spies, international competitors, and mercenary contractors. Throughout this period, Michael and Rebecca maintained structured routine for the children, despite unusual circumstances. Remote education sessions, physical activities within secure perimeter, regular meal and sleep schedules establishing normalcy within emergency situation. Sophie and Lucas adapted with remarkable resilience, their friendships strengthening through shared experience despite different backgrounds. The underground facility's institutional architecture posed challenges for creating child-friendly environment, but Michael's practical skills transformed institutional spaces through creative modifications. Storage containers, repurposed as furniture maintenance materials, converted to play structures. Industrial lighting systems adjusted for comfortable ambiance. Rebecca contributed educational components through impromptu science lessons utilizing facility equipment, mathematics, instruction, incorporating practical applications, history discussions, connecting municipal infrastructure to city development. Their collaborative parenting established effective support structure despite different approaches. Michael's hands-on problem solving, balancing Rebecca's analytical perspective, his working-class resourcefulness, complementing her technical knowledge. The partnership demonstrated unexpected alignment, transcending socioeconomic boundaries, shared protective purpose, unifying different capabilities. After 3 weeks underground, federal authorities provided updated security assessment, indicating significant threat reduction. International law enforcement cooperation had frozen Harrison's remaining financial resources, identified and monitored his known associates, and dismantled major components of his mercenary network. Several key operatives had been arrested attempting to leave the country, while others had abandoned the contract following increased scrutiny and risk assessment. The operational landscape has fundamentally changed, FBI liaison explained during secure briefing. Media coverage transformed confidential extraction attempt into documented international kidnapping conspiracy. Professional contractors avoid high-profile targets that generate sustained law enforcement attention. Michael considered this assessment with cautious optimism, protective instinct maintaining vigilance despite improved circumstances. What about remaining elements? 3 weeks isn't long enough to dismantle an entire network. We've identified and neutralized the specific team assigned to this operation, the agent confirmed. Remaining associates lack operational capability without specialized personnel and financial support. Continued monitoring remains in place, but imminent threat has been substantially mitigated. This evaluation created possibility for transition from emergency response towards sustainable long-term arrangements, evolution from reactive defense to proactive security implementation. Michael and Rebecca began developing comprehensive plans integrating protective measures within normalized living situation, considering options balancing security requirements with childhood development needs. The fundamental question, where would Sophie and Lucas live once immediate danger passed, required addressing complex considerations beyond physical safety. Michael's independent nature resisted solutions creating dependency or obligation, while Rebecca's privilege awareness recognized resource imbalance implications. Both parents prioritized children's well-being above personal considerations, seeking arrangement, providing security without isolation, protection without abnormal restriction. I've been considering options, Rebecca explained during evening planning session, architectural drawings spread across maintenance facility table. Henderson Properties owns the apartment complex at the end of your street. It's being renovated through my family's real estate management division, separate from corporate holdings maintained through independent trust structures. Michael recognized the location, moderately upscale residential property within walking distance of their previous apartment, recently purchased for renovation, with improved security features and updated infrastructure. The building represented significant upgrade from their former housing while maintaining neighborhood connection and community relationships. Henderson Properties is my grandfather's company. Rebecca continued providing context. He was a carpenter before becoming successful in construction. Started with nothing, built gradually. The division operates independently from Horizon Technologies with separate management and security systems. The revelation shifted Michael's perception slightly. Rebecca's wealth wasn't generational entitlement, but relatively recent acquisition. Her grandfather, a tradesman, her mother working double shifts. Not entirely different from his own background, separated by only one generation of economic mobility. We're converting the building to family housing units with enhanced security features, she explained, indicating architectural plans. The community center renovation includes safe haven program facilities with dedicated staff and resources. Your security advisor position would coordinate both operational aspects. The proposal represented comprehensive solution beyond immediate crisis response, permanent housing, stable employment, community integration, security implementation, practical protection incorporated within development project rather than imposed through artificial arrangement. Michael studied the proposal with natural skepticism regarding potential ulterior motives. Working-class wariness about wealthy assistants typically concealing exploitation or control mechanisms. His independent nature resisted dependency relationships despite practical advantages offered through resource access. Why would you invest in our neighborhood? He challenged testing motivation authenticity. Your company headquarters occupies downtown financial district with executive housing in luxury developments. Rebecca acknowledged question legitimacy without defensive response, respecting critical assessment rather than expecting grateful acceptance. After Mark died, Lucas and I lived in the penthouse surrounded by security systems and protective staff. Complete safety through complete isolation. Her expression reflected complex emotional history beneath professional exterior. Grief process complicated by protective requirements, parental responsibility, conflicting with human connection needs. The shared experience with Michael's widowhood created unexpected common ground despite different financial circumstances. We had everything except normalcy, she continued, maternal perspective temporarily displacing CEO efficiency. Lucas had bodyguards instead of playmates, security protocols instead of neighborhood friends. Technical safety without emotional security. Michael recognized parallel experience despite different resource levels. His own protective instincts sometimes creating isolation for Sophie, safety concerns, limiting normal childhood interactions, hypervigilance, restricting developmental opportunities. Different financial circumstances creating similar parental challenges through shared loss experience. The apartment complex renovation offers middle ground. Rebecca explained practical solution, balancing competing requirements. Physical security improvements with normal community integration. Professional protection, resources without isolation, implementation. Your neighborhood already demonstrated resilience characteristics and community support structures. This assessment acknowledged value within working-class environment, typically overlooked by wealthy perspective. Practical strength within financial limitation. Community connection within resource constraint. Resilience development through necessity. Navigation. Recognition transcending socioeconomic boundary, typically separating their respective worlds. Michael processed proposal with measured consideration, evaluating practical advantages alongside independence concerns. The arrangement offered significant benefits: improved housing, stable employment, enhanced security, while potentially creating obligation relationship beyond comfortable acceptance. I don't need charity or special treatment, he stated, establishing boundary condition. My skills have market value regardless of circumstances. Any arrangement needs proper employment structure with reasonable expectations and appropriate compensation. Rebecca responded with respectful acknowledgement rather than offense at implied suspicion. The security advisor position includes standard employment contract, market rate compensation package, performance metrics tied to program implementation rather than personal circumstances. Your practical skills and protective instincts have demonstrated value beyond technical certification. The Safe Haven program needs exactly your capability profile regardless of our personal connection. The clarification addressed dependency concerns while maintaining opportunity benefits. Professional relationship rather than obligation arrangement, capability recognition rather than circumstantial assistance. Michael considered revised understanding with increased receptiveness, practical advantages, acknowledged alongside independence preservation. 6 weeks later, they emerged from emergency circumstances into carefully structured transition. The threat assessment had reduced significantly through continuous federal investigation, dismantling Harrison's network. Multiple operatives faced international charges, financial resources remained frozen through coordinated enforcement actions, and Harrison himself awaited trial with substantial evidence establishing criminal conspiracy. While some risk elements persisted, the imminent danger had diminished to manageable level, allowing resumed public presence with appropriate security measures. The community center renovation proceeded ahead of schedule, contractors working extended hours, implementing designs incorporating both aesthetic improvement and strategic security elements. The memorial garden honoring Samuel Carter took shape behind the main building. Landscape space featuring bronze plaque displaying his name alongside 43 children saved from historic fire legacy documentation, providing context for current security program implementation. Sophie and Lucas participated in garden design with childhood enthusiasm, their creative vision incorporated within professional landscape architecture. Stone pathways followed patterns. They specified plant selections reflected their color preferences, seating areas positioned according to their usage recommendations. Their involvement created psychological ownership supporting transition process. Place creation rather than place occupation, active participation rather than passive acceptance. The apartment complex renovation proceeded with similar community integration. Resident input solicited regarding common area functions, neighborhood committee establishing usage guidelines, local businesses providing services within new commercial spaces. Michael contributed practical expertise through construction, consultation, electrical system, assessments, security implementation recommendations. His professional participation established equal contribution, relationship rather than recipient position, value exchange rather than beneficiary status. Throughout this transition period, Michael and Rebecca maintained regular communication balancing professional cooperation and personal relationship development. Their respective strengths continued complementing different capability areas. Her organizational skills, managing complex renovation logistics, his practical experience, identifying implementation issues, her financial resources, accelerating construction timeline, his community relationships, facilitating neighborhood acceptance. The Carter Legacy Fund established formal structure with appropriate financial management. $2.3 million investment portfolio, generating sustainable income beyond immediate capital access. Michael insisted on directing significant portion toward community development rather than personal benefit. Scholarship programs for neighborhood children, emergency assistance for families facing medical crises, infrastructure improvements, benefiting entire district. This allocation decision reinforced his value system, prioritizing community welfare above individual advantage, legacy, continuation beyond personal gain. 3 months after Harrison's arrest, the Safe Haven program launched officially through community center dedication ceremony. Public event focusing on neighborhood improvement rather than personal security, narrative media coverage, emphasizing community development rather than individual protection implementation. The renovated facility included memorial garden inauguration, honoring Samuel Carter's heroism, public recognition, correcting historical oversight regarding sacrifice and service. The ceremony avoided excessive attention to Michael's personal story, respecting his privacy preference, while acknowledging program inspiration. Instead, presentation emphasized community protection principles, practical security implementation, and educational opportunities for neighborhood residents. Sophie and Lucas participated through ribbon-cutting responsibility, their friendship symbolizing program's fundamental purpose, protecting children through community engagement rather than isolation strategies. Michael assumed security advisor position with clear professional parameters, regular hours, defined responsibilities, appropriate compensation structure. The role utilized his practical expertise beyond electrical certification, implementing physical security systems, developing emergency response protocols, conducting safety education programs for community residents. His working-class background provided essential perspective, frequently missing from institutional security approaches, practical solutions addressing real-world vulnerabilities, accessible methods supporting diverse community implementation, communication style, resonating with neighborhood residents. Rebecca's involvement maintained appropriate professional boundaries while developing personal relationship through natural progression rather than artificial acceleration. Her regular presence at Community Center reflected genuine program commitment rather than temporary interest, sustained engagement, demonstrating authentic investment beyond initial protection response. Their professional partnership evolved gradually toward personal connection, foundation established through shared experience and demonstrated reliability rather than circumstance proximity. Sophie and Lucas began attending school together. Educational continuity established through coordinated enrollment, ensuring appropriate academic support and security implementation. Their friendship continued strengthening beyond crisis circumstances, genuine connection, developing through shared interests and complementary personalities. Sophie's artistic creativity balanced Lucas's technical curiosity, her social confidence, supporting his cautious approach, his analytical perspective, complementing her intuitive understanding. Different backgrounds contributed valuable perspective diversity rather than relationship obstacle. As winter approached, Michael and Sophie prepared for final transition to renovated apartment, permanent residence offering security improvements while maintaining neighborhood connection. The move represented significant advancement from previous housing without creating excessive separation from community relationships and familiar environment. Sophie arranged orange paper cranes throughout new apartment with protective purpose, establishing security ritual within changed environment. Lucas contributed blue fabric decorative elements during frequent visits, their friendship continuing through genuine connection rather than proximity requirement. Rebecca visited regularly despite demanding schedule, rebuilding corporate operations following Harrison's removal and leadership reorganization. Her professional efficiency continued alongside developing personal relationship, CEO capabilities, coexisting with a friendship development, executive responsibilities, maintained alongside human connection. The relationship evolution proceeded at natural pace, foundation established through demonstrated reliability rather than circumstantial proximity. Michael installed Samuel Carter's pocket watch in dedicated display case within new apartment. Family legacy acknowledged through respectful presentation rather than continued practical function. The timepiece maintained symbolic importance while transitioning from everyday carry item to honored historical artifact, generational connection, preserved through changed implementation method. One crisp autumn afternoon, 6 months after the parking lot shooting, Michael conducted routine security assessment at Community Center Memorial Garden. Standard inspection, ensuring protective measures maintained operational effectiveness. Bronze plaque gleamed in afternoon sunlight, Samuel Carter's name prominently displayed alongside those he saved through courageous action decades earlier. Sophie and Lucas arranged colorful stones in decorative pattern along garden pathway, their creative collaboration establishing permanent contribution to community space. Orange paper crane and blue fabric scraps incorporated within stone arrangement, protective talismans integrated within public installation. Rebecca joined Michael's inspection circuit professional partnership, continuing alongside personal relationship development. Their respective expertise areas maintained independent value while creating complementary capability through combined implementation. Corporate resources enhancing practical applications, technical knowledge, supporting physical security, different backgrounds, strengthening collective protection. When people ask how this happened, Rebecca gestured toward children's stone arrangement encompassing broader implementation beyond specific installation. How we ended up working together despite different worlds. What should I tell them? Michael considered this question while watching Sophie and Lucas collaborate on pathway design, their friendship demonstrating connection, possibility, transcending socioeconomic boundaries, typically separating their respective backgrounds. The answer emerged from observed evidence rather than theoretical explanation. Practical demonstration beyond conceptual justification. Tell them we recognized protection looks the same regardless of what form it takes. He suggested understanding derived through shared experience rather than intellectual analysis. Whether it's orange paper cranes or blue silk scarves, silver pocket watches, or corporate security systems, the important part isn't how protection happens, but why it matters. Rebecca nodded, appreciating perspective, encompassing their parallel journeys from different starting points toward shared destination. Both parents ultimately motivated by same fundamental purpose, despite different implementation methods, protecting children against unpredictable dangers, preserving innocence within challenging circumstances, establishing security, enabling healthy development despite inherent vulnerabilities. The children completed their stone arrangement with final decorative elements, Sophie placing orange paper crane at center position, Lucas adding blue fabric beneath stone foundation. Different materials combining into harmonious pattern, manufactured and natural elements, creating integrated design through collaborative implementation. Michael observed their creation with paternal appreciation, childhood resilience, establishing normal joyful activities despite extraordinary experience. Their adaptive capacity demonstrating remarkable recovery potential, trauma integration rather than permanent disruption, growth opportunity within challenge experience. You know, I never fixed my grandfather's watch. He mentioned observation connecting past decisions with current perspective. The repairman quoted $300, money better spent on Sophie's dance lessons or winter coat. I told myself time stops for important moments, but that's not quite right. Rebecca studied his expression, recognizing significance beneath casual comment. What is right then? Michael considered the question while watching children's continued collaboration, different backgrounds, creating complementary contribution rather than compatibility obstacle. Time doesn't stop for important moments. It creates opportunities for choosing what truly matters, for recognizing value transcending superficial differences, for building connections between worlds otherwise separated by artificial boundaries. His gaze returned to Samuel Carter's memorial plaque legacy connection spanning generations through similar protective choice rather than genetic transmission alone, family inheritance beyond physical resemblance or material possession, ethical continuity through repeated decision prioritizing others' welfare but personal safety. My grandfather never told me about saving those kids from the fire. Michael continued understanding, deepening through retrospective consideration. Just like I never explained to Sophie why I check the locks twice each night or install extra smoke detectors. Some protective actions don't need explanation because they're fundamental to who we are rather than conscious choice requiring justification. Rebecca's expression reflected parallel recognition. Her own protective measures implemented without explanation, security systems established without conscious deliberation, maternal vigilance maintained without explicit acknowledgement. Different methods serving identical purpose through different capability expression. Maybe that's what legacy really means, she suggested, watching children's continued collaboration with maternal appreciation. Not monuments or possessions passing between generations, but instinctive values continuing through repeated actions, protecting those who need protection, creating safety where vulnerability exists, establishing security, enabling freedom rather than restricting possibility. Michael nodded, understanding enhanced through shared perspective. Different backgrounds contributing complementary insight rather than contradictory viewpoint. Their partnership demonstrated possibility transcending typical socioeconomic divisions, effective collaboration, utilizing different capabilities toward common purpose. As afternoon sunlight shifted toward evening angle, the children completed their stone arrangement with satisfied accomplishment. Sophie approached Michael with solemn ceremonial bearing, another orange paper crane extended with careful presentation. The protective ritual continued despite changed circumstances, symbolic safety measure implemented regardless of actual security status. This one's for the new garden, she explained with childhood seriousness, transcending chronological development. So it stays safe for everyone. Michael accepted origami creation with appropriate respect, recognizing psychological significance beyond physical object. The crane represented continuing protection commitment, extending beyond immediate family toward broader community. Safety provision expanding through widening responsibility circle. Lucas joined presentation ceremony with blue fabric square, similar contribution reflecting parallel protective impulse. To match, he explained, understanding ritual significance despite different family background. The children's synchronized protective gesture demonstrated value transmission beyond verbal instruction. Observed behavior, rather than explained concept, demonstrated priority rather than stated principle. Rebecca observed interaction with thoughtful assessment, CEO analytical skills applied beyond corporate context. They've created their own integrated protection system. She noted appreciation transcending superficial observation. Different materials, different methods, shared purpose. Exactly what we're trying to build through the Safe Haven program. Michael nodded, recognizing connection between children's spontaneous collaboration and their formal security implementation. Organic partnership modeling down institutional program structure, natural cooperation, informing organizational design. Different scales applying identical principles through proportional implementation. The four figures stood together within Memorial Garden as evening approached, silhouettes outlined against setting sun. Different heights, different backgrounds, different experiences united through shared protective purpose. Family created through choice rather than circumstance. Connection established through demonstrated values rather than biological relation. You're safe now, Michael whispered, watching Sophie and Lucas return to stone arrangement for final adjustments. The words extended beyond immediate children toward broader community, benefiting from implemented program protection, commitment expanding through widening responsibility circle. Legacy continuation extending beyond individual recipients toward collective security enhancement. Generational connection, establishing ongoing benefit, transcending original implementation. The silver pocket watch might have stopped keeping perfect time decades ago, but its legacy continued through adjusted hands and steady ticking, creating measurement system beyond chronological recording. Not time stopping for important moments, but time creating opportunities for important choices. Recognizing true value, protecting vulnerable lives, establishing connections between worlds otherwise separated by artificial boundaries. Michael closed his hand around the silver key Rebecca had presented months earlier. Symbolic gift transformed into practical tool ceremonial, object incorporating useful function. Keys didn't just unlock doors. They connected spaces that would otherwise remain separated, created access where barriers previously existed, established pathways between different worlds typically isolated from each other. Rebecca touched his shoulder lightly, momentary contact, conveying understanding beyond verbal communication. Her expression reflected parallel recognition. Different journeys arriving at similar destination, distinct experiences, creating complementary perspective, separate paths converging through shared purpose. Prioritizing children's welfare above personal consideration. Ready to head home? She asked. Professional, partnership, balance with personal connection through natural development rather than forced acceleration. Michael nodded, watching Sophie and Lucas gather their remaining stones and fabric pieces. Childhood friendship establishing natural bond, transcending socioeconomic boundaries through genuine appreciation rather than circumstantial proximity. They represented possibility beyond typical limitation. Connection established through shared experience rather than similar background relationship developing through complementary qualities rather than identical characteristics. The four figures departed Memorial Garden together, different heights, casting varied shadows across stone pathway as evening approached. Family created through choice rather than circumstance, protection extending beyond biological connection, through deliberate decision, safety established through collaborative implementation rather than isolated effort. Legacy continuing not through possession, transmission, but through value expression, protecting those needing protection, creating security, enabling freedom, establishing connections between worlds otherwise remaining separate. The silver pocket watch continued ticking within display case. Back home, mechanical movement, measuring time progression, while symbolizing continuity transcending chronological limitation. Not time stopping for important moments, but time creating opportunities for important choices, recognizing true value, protecting vulnerable lives, establishing connections between worlds otherwise separated by artificial boundaries. Some legacies weren't merely preserved, they continued.